911 emergency.
I can't find my daughter.
On a Monday morning in 1999, 9-year-old Valiree Jackson went missing.
My mother-in-law called me about 5 after and said, there's a little redhead girl missing on Blasi, and I knew right away it was Valiree.
The search for her whereabouts spanned nearly every neighborhood and nearby mountains and forests, but the little girl was nowhere to be found.
We know you buried her somewhere. You probably didn't bury her deep enough.
The question of motive continued to haunt prosecutors.
You'll never know when the time is that I'm going to throw you in jail.
Spokane, Washington is a lively city located right in the middle of the inland Northwest. A lot of families choose to live a bit east in Spokane Valley, where they can take advantage of great schools, low crime rates, and a tight-knit community vibe. Brad Jackson, a truck driver, shared a home with his daughter Valiree and his parents. He had full custody of Valiree after her mother, Roseanne Pleasant, mysteriously vanished 7 years ago. Roseanne had struggled with substance abuse issues. By October 1999, Valiree had just turned 9 and was a bright 4th grader at McDonald Elementary School, which was only a few blocks away from where they lived.
Just saw a vibrant little girl. If somebody was in an argument, she'd try and mend it and fix it. She was a great little girl, never got in trouble.
October 18th, a Monday morning, started off just like any regular school day. But then out of nowhere, something surprising happened.
Find location of your emergency.
I can't find my daughter.
Okay, how old is she?
9?
Okay. She didn't go to school today?
Nowhere. Just getting ready to go, and she went outside to play for a while because she was done early. I can't find her.
She's a white female?
Yes, little redhead.
Brad said he saw Valiree having a good time in the backyard with her dog while he was down in the basement tackling the laundry. A bit later, he noticed Valiree heading out to school through the garage door.
And then he heard her go out into the front yard. He was very exact. He said exactly 8:32. He walked out the front door and found her missing, found her backpack laying on the front doorstep.
Brad Jackson hurried through the neighborhood, knocking on doors and searching high and low for his daughter before finally reaching out to the police.
Okay, what is she wearing?
She's got blue jeans with a dark blue down the side, purple socks, coat bright pink with I think there's like little blue flowers on it.
I got home at 9 a.m. and my mother-in-law called me about 5 after and said, there's a little redhead girl missing on Blasi, and I knew right away it was Valiree. So I raced over there. Brad was in the front yard, and I went over there and hugged him, and I said, let's find her.
Normally when we get missing kids, I mean, they're found either in the house or at a friend's house playing, and they're cleared within 45 minutes at the most to an hour.
The young girl was still unaccounted for. Valiree's grandmother took to the TV to make a heartfelt plea for her safe return.
Please, whoever took her, we're asking for her safe return. Valiree, you know how we always hug and kiss every night, honey? Well, we're still giving them to you.
While the investigation continued, locals started sharing tips and information with the police.
So I'm right down the street from her. That little girl was kidnapped. I might have something that might be able to help you. Okay, what do you got? In the last couple weeks, there's been a blue blazer and a man about 6'2", light-colored hair.
Sadly, none of these ideas really worked out. The parents started to worry that something strange had come into their once peaceful neighborhood.
We were all terrified. We wouldn't let our kids walk to school, and we didn't want ours to be the next.
Time passed, and there was still no trace of 9-year-old Valiree Jackson. Flyers popped up everywhere, on store walls, car windshields, and all over the internet. Local newspapers and TV channels urged everyone to keep an eye out for anything suspicious.
As a parent, you're concerned because I have a child the same age, that here there's potentially a person who's loose in the community preying on school children.
One theory was that a stranger had grabbed Valiree, but the drama going on in the Jackson family hinted at a different story.
The fact that her mother had been reported missing and was listed as a missing person since 1992, and that either her mother or someone for her mother could have taken Valiree.
The most recent time anyone saw Roseanne Pleasant, Valeree's mom, was back in 1992, 7 years ago. Roseanne's brother didn't think she had anything to do with Valiree going missing. He was pretty convinced it was Brad who was involved.
We believed that he had sold her into a pornography ring to get money. He was raising money for a reward, so we felt that once the money got high enough that he would pay someone off, or he had drug problems. We didn't know.
Detectives looked into Jackson's home for any clues. They came across some stains on Valeree's pillow. Brad Jackson informed the police that Valiree had a nosebleed the night before she vanished. They also found a prescription for Paxil, which Valiree was taking as an antidepressant. It turned out that the usually cheerful little girl was undergoing treatment due to a tough relationship with Danette Schroeder, one of her dad's girlfriends. Danette and Valiree often clashed. Danette had recommended that Valiree see a therapist, which led to the prescription. Forensic experts discovered 2 red hairs in Valeree's bed. These hairs were identified as pubic hairs and looked similar to those of Brad Jackson. However, since pubic hair can easily transfer from clothing, this evidence might not be definitive and could imply inappropriate conduct. Moreover, the police noted that Brad Jackson seemed to remember more about what Valiree was wearing the day she went missing than most parents usually do.
He knew exactly every article of clothing that Valiree Jackson was wearing. He was able to describe it to the police down to her purple socks.
Even though Valiree often dealt with nosebleeds, there wasn't anything else in the house to back up Brad's claims.
I didn't find any evidence in the house other than on the pillowcases of her having a bloody nose. No evidence of her stopping the bloody nose, such as toilet paper, towels, or anything that were laying around.
The police used a search warrant to look through Jackson's pickup truck and car for any evidence, but they didn't find anything in either one. A couple of weeks after Valiree went missing, people in Spokane Valley gathered for a candlelight vigil, coming together to hope and pray for her safe return. Not many folks realized back then that the girl's dad was actually a person of interest.
He'd made statements to me. He knew he was being followed by the news media. There was neighbors following him all the time. He was always having to lose tails. He was very paranoid about it.
It's kind of wild that the authorities weren't keeping a close eye on Brad Jackson. Why? Because they didn't have to. While they were checking out his car and truck, they secretly slipped in tracking devices. These gadgets are known as GPS, or Global Positioning Systems. Up in space, 28 satellites are buzzing around 10,000 miles above us, sending out super-accurate time signals thanks to atomic clocks. By figuring out how long it takes for these signals to hit Earth, a computer can figure out a spot within 30 feet.
The GPS receiver will record that location. If we move to another location, it will know the difference in time and how long we have spent at a time exactly to within milliseconds.
The authorities had the ability to keep tabs on the vehicle's whereabouts thanks to the tracking devices. After putting the transmitters in Jackson's cars, Detective Madsen figured it was time to take a chance. He confronted Jackson, expressing his worries that he could be linked to his daughter's disappearance.
I didn't know if he'd buried her. I just took a gamble. The fact that we hadn't found her, this had been over a week. Yeah, and the fact that she hadn't been found in that period of time would indicate to me that she probably was underground.
He was kind of told by Detective Madsen that, look, we know you killed her. We know you buried her somewhere. You probably didn't bury her deep enough. The animals are going to find her. They're going to dip her bones. We're going to find it.
And yeah, look over your shoulder. I'll be looking for you because you'll never know when the time is that I'm going to throw you in jail.
Hey there. If you enjoy our videos, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us share more true crime stories. Have thoughts? Leave a comment. Don't forget to click the bell for updates. Now back to the story.
The satellites were keeping an eye on things too. Jackson didn't take long to get caught in the trap. The tracking system showed he had driven 60 miles to a remote logging area and hung out there for 44 minutes. Just 4 days later, he made a quick 5-minute drive from his house to another hidden spot on Vickery Road.
He arrives at that site at 2:28:28, and the next movement is 2:44:10, which is approximately 15 minutes.
The tracking system showed that Jackson made another trip, driving 60 miles to that isolated logging spot.
There's some open fields, farmland, and a lot of woods.
When the police showed up at the Valiree Road location, the cadaver dogs directed them to a grave that was barely buried. The place was bare, with just a couple of plastic shopping bags and some duct tape that had a few red hairs stuck to it. After that, the authorities made their way 60 miles to the logging site. The search dogs led them to a spot that had just been dug up. This grave was deeper compared to the one on Valiree Road. Inside, they discovered the body of 9-year-old Valiree Jackson, positioned face down. The police's strategy worked. They had coerced Jackson into relocating Valeree's body to a more concealed resting place.
I watched Sheriff Sturk as he walked towards me. He looked at me and he told me that they had found what they believed to be the body of Valiree. And I just crashed to the ground. I went down. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel my legs, my arms, nothing. I was gone. I was gone. I was mentally, at that point in my life, I died. I died. It hurt so much.
The investigators were flooded with forensic clues. The plastic bags discovered in the grave were the same brand as those in Jackson's kitchen, and they contained traces of Valeree's blood. Additionally, the tape from the grave matched a roll that was located in Jackson's basement. Tire and shoe prints at the burial sites also linked Jackson to the scene. Still, the authorities were on the hunt for solid evidence that Jackson was behind the crime. They shipped the plastic bags found at the grave to the United States Secret Service for testing. The Secret Service used a cool method known as vacuum metal deposition, which can pick up even the tiniest fingerprint traces on smooth surfaces like plastic.
We're here to assist any law enforcement agency, state, local, or other federal agency. Although we're extremely busy, this is the kind of case that goes to the front of the line.
They put the evidence in a chamber filled with tiny bits of gold and zinc. Then they created a nearly perfect vacuum in there. The metals got heated up and turned into vapor, sticking to any oils on the evidence. The analysis went off without a hitch. The Secret Service discovered fingerprints on the inside of the plastic bag and the duct tape, and they were a match for Brad Jackson. When Valiree Jackson's autopsy was conducted, the medical examiner didn't find any signs of sexual abuse, but there were bruises on her face and nose that indicated how she died.
The pillow that was found in her room had 2 blood spots on it, which were consistent with a pillow being pressed over someone's face and the blood draining from the nose there.
Prosecutors were really focused on figuring out the motive behind the actions.
The key issue in all this was why, and convincing a jury that a parent could actually kill their own child.
In an unexpected twist, the tracking data uncovered the reason behind Valiree Jackson's death. Almost a year after she went missing, Brad Jackson faced trial for the crime. The tracking info allowed prosecutors to piece together what happened before Valeree's tragic end. They suspect Jackson smothered her with a pillow, which accounts for the bloodstains discovered by the authorities. He grabbed some plastic bags and tape to wrap around her head, making sure no blood would spill on the floor. Jackson put clothes on Valiree, which helped him recall specifics about what she was wearing, like the shade of her socks. At first, Jackson took Valeree's body to the Valiree Road location, a spot he knew well from his hunting trips. It's not clear if he dug the grave then or if it was done before. Later on, he told the police that Valiree was missing. A couple of weeks later, while being monitored, Jackson took a drive for an hour to a secluded logging area where he was there for about 44 minutes, likely digging a more extensive grave. Just 4 days after that, he went back to the Valiree Road location, took Valeree's body, and moved her to the deeper grave he had prepared at the logging site. But what could have driven Jackson to kill his own daughter? Surprisingly, the motive became evident when the tracking data showed Jackson frequently driving past his ex-girlfriend Danette Schroeder's house. Even after their split, he was still trying to win her back.
So he was really obsessed with this woman, and the obsession got to the degree that his relationship with her was more important in his daughter's life.
I would firmly believe that it got to the point where he saw that Valiree wasn't going to come around to Danette. He wanted Danette, and Valiree became disposable.
Once Brad Jackson got arrested, his first move was to ring up Danette from his jail cell and pop the question. She wasted no time and changed the locks on her doors immediately. Meanwhile, Jack Driscoll, the prosecutor, was really invested in the case.
Here's a parent who is supposed to protect their child, who's supposed to be the guardian for them, and he ends up killing him, buries him face down in the dirt like he doesn't even care. And that offended me. Such a vast degree. I had to do this case. I mean, I had to.
During the trial, Brad Jackson confessed to digging the graves and burying Valiree, but insisted that her death was an accident. He claimed he discovered her after a Paxil overdose. He was scared of being held responsible and freaked out, which led him to bury her. However, forensic specialists testified that the Paxil levels in Valiree's body weren't even close to being lethal. In the end, Brad Jackson was found guilty of first-degree murder and received a 56-year prison sentence.
I believe he should have faced the death penalty, but he didn't. Should face the death penalty.
I hope he never gets out of jail. And I wish he'd tell us where Roseanne is.
A lot of people think Jackson might have had a hand in the death of Valiree's mom, Roseanne Pleasant, from years back, but the authorities haven't found any proof to back that up.
She was scared to death of Brad. In my last conversation with my sister, she said she feared for her life. She said that Brad had some lye around, and what is lye used for? At that time, Brad worked on cement and building foundations. And so to this day, I believe that my sister's buried somewhere in one of those foundations he was working on.
The kids at McDonald Elementary School planted a tree to honor Valiree. It lives and grows there, healthy and strong, the way Valiree should have.